Born in Aurora, Illinois in 1960, he's the second of three children from Charlie and Barbara Smith. Dan comes from a household of union activists. His father, Charlie Smith, was the branch president of 219 Aurora for 25 years. He stepped down as branch president when he became the Illinois state president with a 4-term tenure. His mother, Barbara Smith, was branch 219 Women's Auxiliary President and later became the state president for the Women's Auxiliary for 2 terms.
So the person that inspired me to get involved in union, become a union steward, a union officer, was my dad. My dad was a good mentor. He was president, like I said, branch 219. He was the state president. I could see how he was well respected by his constituents. So it was easy, to get involved in the union. So my dad was part of the strike of 1970. One of the stories I remember is he was being interviewed by a local radio station, WMRO. And so me and my sister, we really thought that was like a big deal because, he was going to get on there and they were going to interview him about why the carriers were out on strike. So me and my sister went to a Catholic grade school. So I remember my mom writing a note asking us to being allowed to listen to his interview, when it was time for him to be interviewed by the radio station. So my mom sent us to school with a little transistor radio, and we were able to go to the school office when they were interviewing him and listen to him being interviewed on the radio. Another story about this strike was they called a meeting of the presidents to go out to Washington, D.C. And I think this is right when they were getting maybe a tentative agreement. And when they landed at O'Hare coming back home, they had sheriffs out to try to get some of these branch presidents that were out on strike, because you weren't supposed to be going out on strike. So as my dad was coming off the plane, they go, one of the sheriffs asked my dad, is there a Charlie Smith on that plane? And my dad says, yeah, he's still on the plane yet, he hasn't gotten off. And obviously my dad got the hell out of there.
He started his career at the Batavia Post Office on November 24, 1984, at the age of 24, as a part-time flexible. The prediction to Dan's career path became pretty easy from his parents' choice of being highly active in the union. Shortly after completing his probation, he immediately got involved in the union. In the spring of 1985, he became a shop steward for the Batavia office. At the time, Batavia was affiliated as Branch 744. During the same year, he was appointed a member of the EI Employment Involvement Team. The EI was a team that came together twice a month to find ways to handle issues outside of the contract. In the 40 years of Dan's tenure, he only missed 3 conventions. He attended his first state convention in Chicago in 1986. Later that year, he attended his first national convention in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1986.
So when I started my postal career in Batavia, we were known as Branch 744. We were on our own. We didn't have that many carriers in Batavia at the time. I'm thinking maybe 12, 13 carriers. So they were having union meetings when I first started. We would have it at somebody's house in the basement. They didn't have enough money to send anybody like the training, if they even had a steward at that time, they didn't have the money to send anybody to training because they weren't paying the regular dues, they were just paying the per capita tax. So they weren't paying the regular dues, to send anybody to trainings. Even if they had a branch president at that time, they weren't actually doing elections. They would just say, okay, who wants to be the branch president, this year? So once I started getting involved, there was a carrier there by the name of Tommy Thomason. He ended up, we held an election, okay? Not everybody wanted to run because it was a small office. So Tommy ran for president. He got the president's job. I put my name in to be the steward. There was another carrier by the name of John Tice, who was the secretary and treasurer, and that was basically it. It was we didn't have like trustee positions or an HBR and stuff like that because we were a small office. Yeah, so we looked into merging. So me and Tommy, sat down. We had some ideas. Obviously, having a person like my dad, who was still president of Branch 219 Aurora, also just recently elected as the state president. We could look to him for some guidance on who we should merge with. So we were talking, well, maybe we should just merge with Aurora. And my dad at that point in time thought that if we were going to merge with anybody, it would be better off merging with a merged branch. So we, he said there's 825 out there, and there's Branch 4016 that have full-time officers. You have full-time representation, and that's why you would want to merge with somebody. So, but at that point in time, Branch 825 was known as being in the Northern Illinois District. Branch 4016 was in the Southern Illinois District, Southern Illinois District, and that's what Batavia was. It was in Southern Illinois District, and so we ended up taking a vote, calling the carriers of Batavia. We had a union meeting, took a vote, and we ended up merging with Branch 4016. It was a tough sell at first with 12 carriers because we came in there and we were changing the way they used to do stuff.
In 1986, as a smaller office of roughly 13 carriers, the Batavia members merged with Branch 4016.
Yeah, so after we merged with Branch 4016, Norm Dabrowski was president, and I decided to run. It was election time coming up for Branch 4016, and I decided to run for a trustee position, and I was successful in being elected as a trustee. I think I ran one term under Norm, and it was shortly after that Norm was stepping down. Norm was the first president of Branch 4016, the merged branch. So Norm was stepping down, and Jack Henniff was running for president. Jack he was a carrier out of the Worth office. So Jack ran for president. I decided to run for recording secretary. So I was successful under Jack's regime as president the first time around and winning recording secretary job. The next election came around. I wasn't so successful. I ran for recording secretary again, and I got beat. What happened was there was a gentleman by the name of Dan Smith that was running for vice president. He was a carrier out of Worth. Jack had opposition against him, and I had opposition against myself running for recording secretary. It was a gal by the name of Audrey Miller out of Moraine Valley. Well, I think what happened was the reason I got beat was because it threw people off, and they seen two Dan Smiths. One was running for Dan Smith running for vice president, and then you had Daniel C. Smith running for recording secretary. So I think that Dan Smith that was running for vice president got some of my votes, which caused me to lose the election. So it was devastating. It was the first election that I lost. So I was still a steward. I was still coming into meetings, staying involved, and I believe Audrey stepped down. So Jack Henniff appointed me to the vacant trustee position. So that got me back on the board again. Which was nice on Jack's part to put me back on the board. Shortly after that, Jack, I think, ran 2 terms. Then Frank Kiefer ran for president. And so under Frank, I basically was a recording secretary till 2009 when Frank decided he wasn't going to run anymore. At that time, Rob Whitehead was going to run. So I was basically recording secretary up until 2009 when I decided to run for the full-time vice president for Branch 4016.
There was a brief gap of union service for Dan between years of 2009 until 2015. In 2009, Dan was elected as vice president for Branch 4016, but he never had the chance to be installed as vice president. So, Dan, what happened?
So the question may come up, so what happened between 2010 when I was supposed to be installed in January up until 2015, October of 2015 when I ran for president? So before I got installed in 2010 as vice president, I decided not to take the vice president job and walked away from it and decided to I wanted to try something different. I thought it might enhance my retirement. I tried a supervisor job out in the Plainfield Post Office. It was a 204B position. At that point in time, they were giving the exam out and they were hiring a lot of supervisors. So I thought, well, hey, maybe this might enhance my retirement. It didn't work out. I was in the Plainfield Post Office for 2 months, and I decided you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You know, at this point in time, I was already involved with the union for 25 plus years, and it was just, chaos in the Plainfield office. I didn't like having to, if I had to discipline somebody. I wasn't supervising any city carriers. They basically let me learn on the rural side. And the rural route carriers in that Plainfield office were all nuts. There were 50-something like rural route carriers, and there were 5 city routes. There were 50-something rural routes in that office. And anyway, so after 2 months of that, I said, I gotta get back to my route before I lose my route. So went back to my route, I think it was April of 2010, and obviously once you do something like that, you gotta pay your penance to the NLC. You can't hold a union position for 2 years. So 2015, October of 2015, I started hearing talk that the president at the time, Rob Whitehead, decided he wasn't going to run. Vice President Joe Maroney decided he wasn't going to run. So I decided, well, maybe it's time for me to get my name back out there and run for position again. So there were 2 other gentlemen running for president, and I felt that I had more experience than them, so I decided to put my name in the hat. Obviously, there's that saying out there, be careful what you wish for. I ended up getting elected, and here it is 9 years later.
Yes, the big dog is back. Dan was nominated in 2015 and was installed as branch president alongside his good friend Mark Osier as vice president 2016. They accomplished many things as president and vice president for the branch. The cultivation of many young members, training, and high success rates in the grievance procedures. Unfortunately, the untimely death of Mark Osier in 2020 took a heavy toll on Dan.
Good afternoon, Branch 4016.
Hi, this is Crystal Cook calling from Oak Forest.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi,
This is the president, Dan Smith.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. So I'm trying to see if I can get a union rep here on Friday around 11 o'clock.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 2 PDIs on Friday.
And who are the PDIs for?
One is going to be Ringo Wentz, and the other one is going to be
Yeah, what? Attendance issues? What?
attendance, yes.
Yeah. At what time? You said 11?
11 o'clock will be good on Friday.
Yeah, we'll work something out. I'll get back to you tomorrow, okay?
All right, sounds
to
good.
confirm, but we'll work something out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Some of the challenges that I've dealt with becoming branch president right after I was elected in December of 2015. Took office 2016, was having to do another rerun election. That was probably one of the biggest challenges I dealt with. Some of the other challenges, every once in a while, a carrier wasn't happy, they would go to labor board, bring up charges against the branch. We always were successful on, winning any of them charges. What else? A couple other challenges, I think, being the branch president. I lost my vice president back in 2020, Mark Osier, who lost his battle with cancer. So that was something I never expected to happen. Wasn't expecting to be in that position where I had to, name a vice president to fulfill his term. That was tough. That was a challenging times. Another challenging time was when we lost President Frank Kiefer, who was president of our branch, probably the longest serving president of Branch 4016. Them were challenging times too, when you had to lay 2 people to rest that you knew for a lot of years. I think another challenge of being a branch president is how the demographics have changed over the years. over the last 9 years probably. You know, you didn't have the women involved as you do now, which is basically, you know, a good thing. Branch 4016 has a lot more women involved than what they had years before. You know, going back when I first became president, or even back when I started my, you know, being on the Branch 4016 board back under Norm Dabrowski. We didn't have the women the way they are involved now. So another story I remember is a funny moment. It was a Branch 4016 installation. Me and Jane, you know, attended it. After the installation, a bunch of us went out, hit a couple bars, and we came back to the hotel. Me and Jane went up to our room and, you know, went to bed. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's out there pounding on our door. And I told Jane, I said, just let them pound. I said, I'm not getting up to answer it. So the next morning, we were getting ready to leave. At the adjoining room, a buddy of mine, Randy Gould, who carried mail in my office as well, stayed in that room. So as we're getting ready to check out, he says, hey, I was pounding on your door like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Why didn't you answer it? I said, because we were in bed. I said, I'm not getting up to answer the door at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, what was me? He said, I was sleepwalking and I was out in the hallway and I didn't have nothing on and there were people out there. So they were saying, hey, there's a naked man in the hall. So I said, well, throw me a towel. So they threw him a towel. And I guess he had to go downstairs and get a key to get back up in his room. So I've decided not to seek re-election in the upcoming Branch 4016 elections. Wasn't an easy thing to do. I had to weigh a lot of pros and cons. You know, got a little input from my wife. Basically, I live in Aurora, okay? Our union office is in Frankfort. It's an hour drive, you know, just one way, and that's without traffic. So, if you know, it's a 10-hour day just with my drive, and that's not doing any other driving, you know, that I'm doing throughout the day. So that's one of the things that weighed on my mind. 9 years as president, I think I've had a good run. Sometimes, you know, when maybe it's time to walk away, you know, it's probably, you know when it's a good time, you know, you've developed younger people to take their branch over, so you know you're leaving it in good shape. You know, so that's basically, you know, one of the reasons. I've always enjoyed carrying mail. I didn't run for this position 9 years ago. It was because I wanted to get off the street and not carry mail anymore, you know, because I hated it. Like I said, I ran 9 years ago because I thought I had more experience than the other 2 gentlemen that ran. What I plan on doing is going back, carrying mail 2 or 3 years. I turned 64 this past July 4th, I turned 64. So I figure if I work another 3 years, that'd take me right to age 67, where I can draw my full Social Security. I'm going back to, you know, the Batavia office, number 1 seniority. I got a nice mounted route on the west side of Batavia residential. You know, it's just going to be getting back into the daily routine. And you really think management's going to screw with this old guy?
The tenure of Dan has been an ultimate roller coaster filled with thrills, chills, and excitement. But it's safe to say the majority of his time as a union was greatly achieved. A shop steward for over 20 years, branch trustee, recording secretary, MDA and food drive coordinator, a handful of committees, Carrier Academy instructor, Illinois State Executive Board member, backup and full-time dispute resolution team member, and arbitration advocate. Dan has been an inspiration to many, a big brother to others. He's known for kicking management's ass countless times when it comes to the grievance procedure. We hate to see you go, but thanks to your leadership, our branch has grown tremendously in outstanding talent. I know we can rest assured that you're leaving the branch in good hands. We all appreciate and love you. Thank you, Dan Smith.
Well, Dan Smith. Of course, he's a Green Bay Packers fan. We're going to throw that over in the trash. Bears fan all day, Dan. But, Dan, going to miss him when he leaves. But I know for a fact that it's a phone call away to shoot the breeze, talk to him, give me guidance. He might cuss me out a couple of times if I call him real late for a question or something like that. he gets all the respect that he deserves, because coming into the door as a new carrier in Carrier Academy from orientation, he introduced himself to me as the branch president. Looked at him as, this guy with this haircut, looked like he's in the military. I felt like I was going to be doing some type of push-ups or something to earn my stripes as a union steward. But he showed me that he was laid back, that there was an open door policy with him. I could always call him for advice. Times I called him up here, hey, I need a grievance number. You calling me again? Damn. So took that as that I was doing my job as a union steward. That's all because the training he gave us. Sad to say he's going to be stepping away from being our president, but hopefully he becomes Batavia's union steward until he gets ready to retire. Because with all that knowledge, it's how I want to say it in a Dan way, don't waste the shit. So that's all I can say about Dan. I'm gonna miss you, brother. I love you.
Hi, Tom Blecker, Officer Branch 4016. Aaron gave me an assignment for 2 minutes, so I'm going to do this as fast and quick as I can. The humorous one to me was a state convention many years ago, and Dan was a young kid, and we went out, a bunch of guys, and we came back to the mixer. And we walked in later in the evening, and here's Dan up on the stage with the microphone in his hand, and he's singing this one-hit wonder from Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, Wooly Bully. And we all had a really good chuckle, because he was, feeling his oats. That's probably why he got the courage to go up there on the stage. But anyway, I know I gotta be quick. The second one is something a little more serious. His buddy Randy and him, when they merged with our branch 4016 from Batavia, Randy, after a period of time, became wheelchair bound. And it just always stuck with me in my heart how Dan would take care of him, pick him up, take him to branch 4016 functions, pick him up in his wheelchair, and bring him to a Kane County Cougar game, baseball game. And it just, and other things. He just was such a buddy, and so helpful to his buddy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Joe Maroney. I'm a member of Branch 4016. I've been a union member for 41 years. Had a couple of nice honors bestowed on me. I was a 2011 graduate of the Leadership Academy, Class 11. I also served as Vice President of Branch 4016 up until the year of 2015. I now serve as a branch trustee. While I was the VP for Branch 4016, I was assigned to the Batavia Post Office where Dan was working. So I did have some interaction with Dan at that time. I always enjoyed working with Dan. Dan always took a special pride in, once he became president in 2015, he impressed me with his knowledge and his dedication. So I'm gonna be sorry to see him go, but again, it's really enjoyable working with him. He also, I don't know if anybody knows this, he's a bartender on the weekends. So we've gone up and seen him on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, watching his favorite Green Bay Packers play. But again, I wish him much success.